Welcome back to the Sports Business Leaders Podcast. Today we have a very special guest on, Skyler Logsdon. Thanks for coming on, Skyler.
Justin, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So Skyler is the co-founder and CEO of Boomerang, a fast-growing startup solving one of the most frustrating problems in the customer experience world, lost and found. Now, what started as an idea between Skyler and a few of his friends quickly became a VC-backed platform used by stadiums, universities, and airports all across the country. And they essentially help customers recover sentimental and valuable items with the help of AI and streamlined software. Now, Skylar's background includes deep experience in startups, and Boomerang's founding team includes leaders behind companies like Shazam, YouTube, and Tatari. So again, Skylar, welcome to the show and excited to dive in deeper here.
It's great to be here. Thank you for having me on. Can't wait to get going.
Yes, sir. So, Skylar, take us back to the moment that Boomerang was born, and why do you think this lost and found problem resonated with you specifically? And what was your first step from idea to actually making this into a company?
Yeah, so I think there was the aha moment, and then there was the decision to actually do something about it. And so the aha moment actually came from my co-founder, Philippe. He was the founder of Shazam, the music recognition app that was acquired by Apple for 400 million. He also founded TrueCar, which is a public company for automotive pricing. He was early at YouTube. He also started Tatari. That's a company I built with him for about 7 years. And so Philippe was in Vegas and he was at a nightclub. He loves music. And so you can imagine some great DJ was playing, I'm sure. And he was in Vegas with his girlfriend and she lost her phone. And that's where the moment happened where like, oh my gosh, you need to call the club, you need to follow up. You're asking all the employees, you tweet at them, you Facebook message at them. And he felt that panic of like, wow, that phone is very important to get back for Anna, and I want to get this back for her, but this is a very fragmented and annoying problem. And you probably spent some nice coin at that nightclub as well, and at that hotel, and at just Vegas in general that weekend. And I can't believe this is how they make customers go about this frustrating, panicked moment. And so him and Anna were talking about like, gosh, this can be so much easier with smart technology. Why is there not a Shazam of lost and found? Imagine a world where if a business or an individual finds something, they upload it to a platform called Boomerang. And you throw a boomerang and it comes back to you. And imagine if you lose something, you can actually go to Boomerang and click all the places that it may be. Maybe it's at the hotel, maybe it's at the restaurant, maybe it's at the nightclub. And imagine if you could click all those places and the technology does a search for you. And it goes, "Oh, it's actually at the nightclub. Would you like to pick it up or would you like to have your item shipped?" Because you may still be in Vegas or maybe you're back in San Francisco. And so that was the kind of aha moment and the vision. And Philippe and Anna sat on that idea for a couple years. And, I started that company Tatari with Philippe. And after 7 years, I wanted to start another company. And it was my 29th birthday in Cabo, Mexico, where Philippe is, a best friend of mine, like a second father, my closest mentor. He actually told me about the idea because his girlfriend Anna lost her jewelry in the Cabo airport. And here we are again, where you're driving back to the airport, you're telling people, you're filling out email form, you're sending an email and leaving voicemails and following up on follow up. And he was telling me like there needs to be a Shazam of lost and found. This is like a no-brainer idea. He's telling myself and my other best friend Augustine, who's a total operator. We're definitely having a few margaritas that day, having tacos, and Augustine and I looked at each other like, let's do this. We're both 29. We've both been, a part of building big companies before and let's do this. So we committed, we kind of brought our hands together. We're like, let's go get this thing solved. Let's start first as a B2B lost and found software that partners with airports, airlines, shopping malls, stadiums, hotels, cruise ships, casinos, ski resorts, golf courses. And a few months later, we ejected out of our companies and we raised a $3 million pre-seed round and off we went. That was 3.5 years ago.
Wow, this is fascinating, Skylar. And the one of the big points that I took away from that story of your origin was going back to relationships. And the funny thing was that you and I met at the 76 Capital event not too long ago. I believe it was only about a week or 2 weeks ago at this point. And you actually mentioned that when you were on the panel was the importance of relationships. And with that being said, um, thinking more about the origin story, it's fascinating to think about how simple this problem truly is. And from your experience, having started other companies, and I love that analogy, the Shazam for lost and found. And with your experience and the team around you, you've figured out how to solve this simple problem and create those relationships with the stadiums, the universities, the airports. So it's really and I loved on some of the documents that you sent, it's an 8 billion person problem. Everybody experiences this. So with all that in mind, um, how did you build this product in a way that could scale across industries, like I mentioned, from sports to airports to concert venues, that creates a win-win scenario for both sides?
Yeah, I want to touch on relationships, and I met Philippe. He was a speaker at an event. I was 19 years old, and he was talking about Shazam. And I sat in line after his panel ended. I got his business card. Um, and yeah, many years later, after he had mentoring me all through college, we end up starting Tatari together. And then, 7 years after that, we start Boomerang together. And I I'm very interested in people. I'm fascinated by them. I'd way rather ask them questions than talk about myself. Uh, I love learning from people. I love smart minds. And when I met you, like I'm not just there to shake your hand. I'm there to become a friend for life. I believe in like infinity friendships, the infinity game of life. Like I work out not just to get strong today. I work out because it makes me feel good, and it's something I always wanna do forever. It's not a little sprint, a jolt of an activity I'll do for a year. When I meet someone, it's not like, "Oh, I'm not gonna stay in touch with that person. They're just here in my life for a year." I really play the forever game with everybody, and I think my co-founders are great examples of that. I've known Augustine, from my first startup I ever worked at right out of college. He started the next day after I started. He was their first ops hire. I was their first sales hire. And many years later, he's my co-founder. In the meantime, he was my best friend, and attended every single birthday party I've ever had. We always made a point to see each other since the first day that we met. And so I think with B2B enterprise SaaS, like it's relationships as well. Yes, we have a great product. Yes, it's effective. Yes, we can automate a ton of tedious tasks for these venues. And yes, we could return a ton more items back to their customers. But it's also a relationship business. We check in with MSG weekly. We're talking to them, with Intuit Dome. These are like Wells Fargo Center, Buffalo Bills. Like, we have a ton of airports on the platform. The relationship, they're all relationships for us that we really cherish, and we're proud to be in partnership with them, and we enjoy talking with them every day. So I think that building good relationships gives you an opportunity to get into the door of being a nice person. And I think our whole team, like they're really enjoyable people. We built a team of smart and kind people, and so when we sign a client, they get to meet our head of ops or our head of product, who's also smart and kind. Then that unlocks good feedback from the partners. They start telling Tanner or Alyssa really interesting things of what they would like because they have that trust. And then you build that for them. They go, gosh, this is making our lives so much easier, or our work days so much easier. And then they're going to go tell their friends at a conference, their industry peers, when they, what have you been doing this year lately at MSG? And they're going to say, like, oh, well, we implemented a lost and found platform, and it's actually really made our work days easier. You guys should reach out to Boomerang, and then the next venue joins. And I think just doing right by people, building relationships, um, will it's powerful. It's whether it's a personal friendship or a business relationship, everyone wants to enjoy the person that they're talking to on the other end of the Zoom call, or the other end of the table at coffee. So I think, in entrepreneurship, I've definitely built that my curiosity when I join a sales call or I join a podcast. Man, for every question you ask me, I have one that I wish I could ask you back, but I get it in this podcast setting. You're asking me the questions, but I could interview you right after this, and I have so many questions for you as well.
Yeah, no, this is great. Thank you again for sharing all that, Skylar. And this actually reminds me of an anecdote that another successful founder that I just recently spoke with mentioned. Zubin from Lakeside, he sold his company to TeamSnap. And instead of thinking about it from a B2B standpoint, I love what he said, and it resonates exactly with what you said. He said it's not a B2B relationship, it's a human to human relationship. And just understanding that it's a person on the other side of that call or that Zoom meeting. And it's just so important with the relationships that you've built, and really whoever is looking to build a business, that's where it all starts. And with all that being said, you obviously have several recognizable names like Drake and Odell Beckham Jr. on your cap table. And we were just talking about this earlier about how you've taken investments from the family office of the Adidas family, the family that owns Adidas, and then of course 76 Capital, which is where we met at their annual meeting. And so, can you talk about the importance of raising capital strategically from not only recognizable names, but firms like 76 Capital that could open specific doors for you that otherwise you might not have access to?
Yeah, what a great question. And it's one of my most favorite topics to talk to founders about, because there's money and you can quickly raise the round. Let's say you want to raise 3 million, 6 million, 10, 20, whatever it is, and you can just chase the checks. But what I've learned is not every dollar is the same. You can get $1 from someone who just wants to look at it as an investment, or you can get a dollar from someone who says, hey, this is an investment and I'm going to work my butt off to make sure that we all get a good return. And I'll talk specifically to 76 Capital, how we met. Like, you take a dollar from them, from Chad and Wayne and John and Jack, and like, you just added 5 new salespeople to your team, and they get to work. Like, a lot of funds tell you this. They say we're going to help any way that we can, and they tell that to 50 founders, however many founders they back in that fund. And then when they run out of their money, they go raise another fund and they go get 50 more founders that they've told that same promise to. And it's hard. It's not always scalable. If all 100 companies want your help, and I can say for 76 Capital, we accepted their check and they got on our cap table, and that comes with introductions to Delaware North, parks, casinos, Penn Entertainment, the Pirates, the Cavs, like, really, they have driven us a ton of revenue. And that's the founder's dream. The founder's dream is that you partner with people that want to help. And so for any founder out there, like, take your time, go have coffee, dates with as many VCs and investors that you can to really understand their value. Go talk to their portfolio companies to see, hey, did that person that's telling you, or that fund that's pitching you that they can be valuable, are they actually valuable? Or, is that just their pitch and then they cut the check and off they go? There's no actual follow through. Yes, the celebrities, again, relationship. Uh, we have some really big names on the cap table, but it's not just about names. It's how can they help? It's always been about how can they help. It's your name, yes, signals maybe some prestige, and you can get an article out of it. But how can you help get us new business? How can you help us create a moat? How can you help us build the brand? And so, any founder out there, like, yes, you can just get a celebrity on your cap table, but same thing. Look for a celebrity who's willing to help, who has some unique advantages that could unlock growth for Boomerang or your company, to get you there faster.
Yeah, it really is so important just thinking about who can open those specific doors. And I love what you just mentioned there about 76 Capital, their team, and then those other names that you mentioned earlier with, Drake, Odell Beckham Jr. And while, yes, those are recognizable names, it's more so going back to that central thread that we've been talking about, the relationships. And so with I love that. And now you're obviously working with major venues and airports and concert venues all across the country. Um, with that said, where do you see the biggest opportunities for growth within Boomerang? And I know that you're still a relatively new company, so how do you see your team staying focused on solving this very like human and emotional problem?
Yeah, when I think of, what Boomerang is becoming, it's the open table of lost and found. Like if you start a restaurant today and you're not on OpenTable, you look silly. You look archaic. You look like you fell behind the times. And it's happening with lost and found. It's happening where when someone loses something at MSG, it's a great experience. It's effective. Your odds are very high that you get it back, and you don't waste much time at all. You just submit a claim in 10 seconds. A match is created, and we ask you, do you want to pick it up or do you want it shipped? It's all very easy. But if you lose something at Prudential Center, they don't use Boomerang. Barclays doesn't have Boomerang. UBS Arena does, though. And so, as that fan goes to a Barclays event and loses something there, they're going to be like, why do I need to call this phone number? Why don't you guys have shipping options? Why did it take you 2 weeks to get back to me? Why did I come to the facility and it's actually not my item because you gave my jacket to someone else? I'm making all this up, but that's how you can see where network effects kick in. And one day there will be a solution through Boomerang where if you lose something in the street, you could also post on Boomerang. There's 10 million dogs lost every year in the street. Today, people still print flyers out and slap it on the local pole in the neighborhood. Imagine if you could post the dog that you found or that you lost on Boomerang, the number one way to get back an item, rather than having to post on Craigslist, on Facebook, on Nextdoor, on Ring, on Citizen. And then you have all these people saying, hey, I found your car keys. I found your dog. And you're like, well, there's 5 people telling me they found my dog. How do I know who's who? And so I think having Boomerang just be one single sharp knife of the one place you go to just for item recovery
Yeah.
is how you win, because Facebook Marketplace does a lot of things and it's all open where someone posts that they found these car keys and really you get 20 people saying those are mine. If you found them, how do you even go about filtering through who to give these car keys to? And so I think our verification, the AI matching happening all behind the scenes is, how you can bring that integrity to a platform that I haven't seen anywhere else.
Yeah, this is very, very fascinating, Skylar. And I love your the one topic that resonated with me was the fact that this all goes back to the customer experience. And if a customer is going to an MSG versus another venue that doesn't have Boomerang, it might look very different if they lose something at the one venue versus the other that doesn't have Boomerang. And so this is great. And I think this is packed with lessons for founders and executives and really anybody that's trying to build within any startup, and especially for our community within sports, given the fact that Boomerang, of course, works with a lot of venues and stadiums all across the country. Now, with all this said, Skylar, knowing our audience of sports business leaders, is there any last words or pieces of advice that you would want to share with the audience that we have here?
Find your edge if you're a sports team owner, if you're affiliated with any venues, find your edge. It's in the worst of moments, if you could wow your customers, I think that's where you get the social media impacts. That's where people go to Facebook and write something wonderful about your business. That's when they go and tell their friends of like what happened in the worst of moments where you left your wallet or your car keys at Nissan Stadium and your car was about ready to get towed, or you couldn't get on your flight without your passport. and it quickly got matched and returned on Boomerang, and off you went. It saved you from your car getting towed. It saved you from having to buy that new car key at Mercedes or BMW, or they're $500 plus. It's don't overlook lost and found. Just throwing items in a box is and answering voicemails and phone calls and emails and social media messages all day long. It's expensive. It's expensive to field all that, and it's expensive to be bad at it. If you can wow the customers in the worst of moments, I think that's what makes the special brands special. When uh, think about when Delta did free Wi-Fi, like game changer. It's just Wi-Fi, like paying 29 bucks every single time you hopped on a flight. If you have a transfer, now you're paying for this flight and that flight. And then they just said, we're going to give it for free. Like, that's cool. I really choose Delta. I keep it in mind that, like, hey, it's free flight and it's Delta. It's an incredible brand. I'm sure that's expensive. I'm sure it's really expensive to give free Wi-Fi when American charges for it and everybody else usually charges for it. So I think a lot, if I was on the other side of the table as an operator, like, how do you wow customers in the worst of moments and touch them in ways that uh, that are powerful and that make you fall in love with the brand. And I think Lost and Found is a great one. Um, and I'd encourage everyone, make friends, be curious and play the forever game. Make infinity game decisions, like meet someone for life and try to find ways to bring value to them, and never ask for anything in return. Just front load it, be the valuable one. And some people may never have a way to return the favor. Some people may quickly be able to return the favor. Don't keep score. Just, bring value and do it because it feels right.
Yeah. And this reminds me too of a quote from Warren Buffett. He talks about just delighting your customer and one of the central threads of our podcast here, Skyler, is talking about keeping that at the center of the mind and just making sure that if you're always acting in the best interest of your customer, good things are going to happen. So thank you again, Skyler, for sharing all this today. How can the audience follow along Boomerang and stay in touch with you?
All the typical ways, like, go to social media. You can follow Boomerang, LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, I should say. Myself, you could reach out to me, Skyler at thanksboomerang.com. Send me an email. I'm friendly. Uh, Send me a note via LinkedIn. I respond to pretty much everything. I see it all and I get back to as much as I can. I'm usually pretty quick.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Skyler. I very much appreciate you being on the show today, and best of luck moving forward with Boomerang.
Thanks again, Justin. Cheers.